Hello and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast of uncommon conversations about love. I'm your host, Francesca Hoagie. Hello and thank you so much for listening. I am sending you a lot of love and well wishes. I hope that you are safe. I hope that you are taking good care of yourself. And I hope that you are doing your part to participate in the revolution that's happening right now. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about purpose. And purpose is obviously a big topic. And I've been thinking about what my purpose is at this moment in time a lot over the last couple of weeks. And I decided that my purpose at this moment is to talk to you about your purpose. Purpose is something that I think a purpose is not being about what is your career meant to be or what is your one burning passion. If you're like me, you don't have one burning passion. You have lots of different things that you're passionate about. I'm really talking about purpose as the way that I've been defining it for myself is really looking at what is the intersection between your natural talents and gifts and abilities and an opportunity to be of service. Where do those intersect? The things that you are naturally good at, the things that come easily to you, the things that you might even take for granted because they come so easily to you. Like, for instance, you might be an excellent communicator and you take it for granted that you've always been able to communicate really well, or you might be a great baker and you've taken it for granted, like, oh, I've been baking my whole life, no big deal. Or you might be an amazing musician or dancer, or you might be incredibly empathetic. You might have a real natural ability to make people feel very seen and very heard and very valued. You know, you might be a great artist. There's so many different talents that you might possess. Your gift might be in the way that you see the world, right? Like, you might be a person who looks around right now and you see what's happening in the world and you see the conversations that are happening and you might see, there's a gap there. No one's talking about this, or no one's thought about this angle or this next step or this need that I see. Like, you could have a gift to see something that no one else can see, and you're taking it for granted because you're like, well, when's somebody going to do this? I had a conversation with a client of mine last week who is incredibly talented, and she's had an incredible amount of work experience that has led her to this point in time where she has a perspective of what's going on in our country politically that most people could never have because they've never had this series of experiences that she's had. They don't have her particular gifts. And we were talking last week, and she was like, I see all this happening, but I'm really looking for an organization that's doing this. I'm not going to tell you what it is exactly. That's not important. The point is that she's like, there's got to be an organization out there that's doing X, Y, and Z. And that is what this country really needs right now. And I finally had to say to her, I said, if it existed already, you would know about it. You've been looking for it. It might be time for you to create this thing in the world that you know in your heart needs to be done. And you have the skills, you have the gifts to do it. And there was resistance there because she's like, oh, but she was waiting for somebody else to do it. But this is a moment in time where we have a choice to make when we see a gap. And she is going to do it, by the way. She just needed a little encouragement, and she's excited about doing it because it's something that's really exciting to her, even though it's a little scary, right? We can be scared of doing something, but still choose to do it anyway and push through that discomfort because it's there to teach us something. This opportunity is there to teach us something. So your purpose can be, your gifts can be all sorts of things. And then you look around at the world and you look at Black Lives Matter, you look at the fight for racial justice, you look at what's going on with COVID and how cities and states are reopening and people are out and getting a little lax, even though we've just hit 2 million COVID cases here in the US, and it's only going to go up, especially with people becoming very lax about social distancing. And I'm not talking about the protesters. I'm talking about the people who were going to beaches and picnics and parties. And I have to say, I went to a party. It was my first social outing last weekend for my friend London Hughes. Shout out to London. She's great. And it was a socially distanced pool party. And when I was there, I was like, oh, I can see what a slippery slope this is. There weren't that many of us. Everyone had masks. But it still was like, ooh, this is really kind of pushing it. And actually made me think I probably shouldn't do something like this again anytime soon. But anyway, getting back to purpose, maybe you see a way where people would be more comfortable with social distancing if this existed. People would be more comfortable with social distancing if they had this perspective on it, or whatever it is. And when we have these moments in time, especially if you're feeling powerless, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed, the real remedy to that is to take action. And I know it can feel hard to know what action to take. And yes, there's the actions that not everyone. I'm such an echo chamber. The people in my life, people are donating, people are contacting elected officials and signing petitions and marching and, raising awareness on social media. And I'm not marching, but I'm doing those things as well. But I also had to ask myself, well, I'm doing all those things and that's great, but what can I do? How can I be of service in a way that maybe other people can't be of service, right? So when I say of service, I don't mean that you have to literally be, standing out in the street handing out masks or anything like that. You being of service could be, I have a friend who's an artist named Adia Millette, shout out Adia, and she's an amazing artist and she's selling puzzles of one of her prints, and 100% of the proceeds of those puzzles are going to racial justice causes. That's a way of being of service. You could be a DJ like DJ D Nice or Sonny James or all these amazing DJs who are out there and they're just doing they're just playing music for people on Instagram and on Twitch and on YouTube, and they're just doing it just to be of service, and it's bringing people joy, it's bringing people relaxation, it's giving people a chance to unplug from the stress of life and to go into more of a celebratory mode. So how can you be that person? Maybe the way that you can be of service is by having difficult conversations with people in your life. Maybe I have another client who I was talking to yesterday, and I so appreciated her in this conversation because she's a white woman and she's just started dating again. She's in her 50s and her husband passed away and she's getting back into the dating scene now, and which is why she hired me. And she's connected with this man who is a catch. He's successful, he's smart, he's interesting, he's all of these things. And they had their first phone conversation the other night, and she very candidly said to me, she said, I'm a little concerned because I'm not sure that he supports Black Lives Matter. I'm not sure he supports the movement. And I think that should be a deal breaker. Is that a deal breaker for me? Because he had asked her out to dinner. She's like, I don't know. Should I go? She was on the fence. And I said, well, maybe this is your opportunity to go and to have a conversation with that man. And maybe you're a person who can talk to him and reach him in a way that other people can't. Now, I'm not saying if he was like a total bigot, that's not the case. That's not what's going on here. But, he just has some conditioned thinking, right? And a little bit of it, not 100%. If he was egregious, she wouldn't even be considering it. But it was just even to have that conversation with him might be how she is of service as a white woman who has a certain background and has a certain lifestyle, and maybe he doesn't expect someone like her to be the person who educates him about racial justice, but she might be that person, right? So she and I had an amazing conversation about race yesterday, and I shared some resources with her, and she was so excited about it, and she was sharing them with her children. And maybe, these little ways which we can be of service. It doesn't mean that you have to figure out how can I reach 1 million people. Maybe it's how can I reach one person? That's your job right now. That's what you can do. And this is a podcast about love. And I decided the way that I could be of service this week is to talk to you about purpose. Because first of all, I happen to think that we all have a desire, an inborn heart-centered desire to live out our purpose, just the same way that we have a heart-centered desire to have love and to have connection and to have intimacy. We are all born wanting these things. They're part of who we are. And so often in life, we just have all this noise and all this conditioning that take us further away from that purpose, take us further away from those heart-centered desires. And we think, I'll figure it out one day, or who am I to want that, or whatever. We can talk ourselves into or out of anything. But I really want to, and I'm going to make this short. I'm not going to ramble forever today. So thank you for bearing with me, because I know I can get a little on a tangent sometimes. But it's so important to really know that everything that you were born with has a purpose. Everything that you are interested in, you're interested in for a reason. Every natural gift that you have for a reason. You are not a mistake. It is not random. I don't care how trivial you think it is, how much you're discounting whatever it is that is your jam, whatever it is that lights you up, whatever it is that you are good at. It is there for a reason. You were given that gift for a reason. I truly believe that. And I want you to live a life where you're always embracing your gifts, where you're always figuring out how to express them into the world, because that's why they're in you, because they need to be expressed into the world. Like, the world needs what you have. And I feel very passionately about this. And to me, this is love. It is an act of love towards yourself to honor your gifts. It is an act of love towards the world for you to share your gifts. So I really want you to look at it from that perspective. And if you are listening to this and you're feeling like, I don't really know what I'm good at, or I don't see what my natural gifts, how they translate, just open yourself up. Just start to think about it. Like, don't just think about your resume. Think about what is in your heart. Think about the things that people come to you for. Think about the things that people say, wow, you're so good at that. Or, man, you're just so good at putting a smile on my face. Maybe it's that. Maybe the way that you can be of service right now is that you are reaching out to people in your life who you know are really going through it right now, and you provide them with that moment of levity. Maybe that's your role for right now, because your purpose is not one thing that's static throughout your entire life. Your purpose is something that can change depending on what the situation is, right? Depending on where you are in your life, depending on what has presented itself. So I really encourage you to get curious about this if you haven't figured that out for yourself already. Really just thinking about, okay, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, what are the things that I was always drawn to doing? What are those things? Maybe you're a great reader and your purpose right now is to read books and to translate them for people. I don't mean literally translate like into a different language, but maybe, you're the person who's going to voraciously read books that you read and you're like, oh, the world needs to hear this message, right? So maybe you're the person who's always recommending books. Keep recommending books, but also maybe you can break it down a little bit more for the people who aren't going to read the book, but there's a message in there that you really want to make sure gets out into the world. So amplifying other people's messages could be part of your purpose right now. Going on social media and taking a look at who you follow and saying, I don't follow a lot of Black people or a lot of Black women, or pay attention to who I'm retweeting. And maybe my goal right now, my purpose right now, because you might have a platform, you might have a voice, is to say, I'm going to amplify voices that aren't normally heard, right? Maybe that's your purpose right now. So it can be quote unquote big. It can be quote unquote small, but it all matters. It's not about how many people you're impacting. It's about you taking action that's in alignment with your heart and your soul's natural gifts and talents and expressing them out into the world. And Lord knows we need that now more than ever. There are too many people who are playing small. There are too many people who think that they don't matter. There are too many people who think that their voice doesn't count. There are too many people who think that they do not have anything to share with the world. And I'm here to tell you, and not that I'm the only one, obviously, who's saying this, but today this feels like my purpose to tell you this today, that includes you. So you are a gift, you have gifts, and don't be a person who shrinks away from your gifts and your talents and diminishes them. Know that everything that you have within you is beautiful. There is a reason for it, and you always have an opportunity. But today, at this moment in time, this moment in history, you have a real opportunity to activate your purpose in a way that you maybe never thought you could, or you would, or you never even considered before. But I urge you to consider that right now, because the world needs you and your soul needs you to be brave enough and creative enough and to bring your beauty and your joy and your talents out into the world. So that is the message that I have for you today. If you are still listening to this, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I know that this is not typically the kind of episode that I do, and I've had people reach out to me about being on the show, which I so appreciate, by the way. So if you want to be on the show, please continue to reach out. If I don't think that you're the right fit for the show right now, I'll tell you that. But, there's a lot of people who have been reaching out to me, and it's like, oh, I want to talk about, this way to find love, or this way to meet a man, or da-da-da. And I'm like, that's all beautiful. That's all perfect. I love it. I'm still talking about that every single day with my clients. But I also, at this particular moment, today, this week, June 11th, that's when I'm recording this, I feel like talking about this. I don't feel like talking on my podcast right now about dating. maybe that'll change and I'll be back next week with an episode about dating and about love and about relationships. But right now, I really feel called to tell you that whatever is in your heart and your soul, the world needs it. So I want to encourage you, and I want to just make sure that you know that you can do this and you have a role to play. And I really hope that you step into that role for your sake and for the world's sake, because we need you. Okay. That's it for now. Thank you so, so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of you who are out there and protesting and making change happen right now. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you for listening to this podcast. I'm so grateful to those of you who have taken the time to review this podcast. If you're enjoying it, please just go ahead and tap 5 stars. It only takes a few seconds and it means so very much. And for those of you who've also taken the additional time to write a review, I'm so extra grateful for that. Thank you so very much. And you can stay in touch with me. I am at Dear Franny on Instagram, which is where I'm the most active these days. Also on Twitter. Actually, I'm pretty active on Twitter too. I'm at Dear Franny on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on all the places. The podcast is at Dear Franny Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. I appreciate you. I wish you well. I am sending you a big hug. I will be back next week, and go out into the world, spread your light, spread your joy, spread your love. And I thank you for doing it, because that's the beautiful thing to see, and it makes the world a better place. Okay, stay safe out there.